Guys, have you heard a rumor about a slug-headed specter that brutally slaughtered an entire family? Most people dismissed it as just another ghost story, but this particular case turned out to be far more extraordinary. The reason was the monster's shocking fate. Just a few days after the massacre, the creature's severed head was discovered hanging from the front gate. The one responsible for this gruesome sight was the family's only survivor, a 10-year-old boy. Rumors quickly spread that the child wasn't human at all. Meanwhile, calm gradually returned to the streets of the large, bustling city. Not far away stood a humble home surrounded by straw fences, where the specter's horrifying head was still impaled on a bamboo stake. A mysterious man wearing a broad hat arrived, knowing this was the place everyone had been talking about. The specter hunter, Mangan, admits he almost feels sorry for the creature. He recalls how the terrified villagers had desperately begged him to eliminate the boy. They were convinced that a vicious specter was disguising itself as a 10-year-old child. After all, there was no way an ordinary kid could defeat such a monster and display its head so mercilessly. Determined to uncover the truth, the hunter slowly pushes open the wooden gate. Inside, he finds a young boy sitting quietly with his back turned in the courtyard. His face is bruised and covered in dried blood. Calmly, the boy asks who he is. The man introduces himself as the specter hunter, Mal, and the boy quietly repeats his name as if committing it to memory. Standing over him, the hunter carefully studies the young survivor. He wonders if this frail child could really be the monster everyone feared. When he notices the boy's dark, lifeless eyes, he understands why the villagers were so terrified, but he refuses to judge him before learning the truth. The hunter notices several freshly dug graves that the boy had made with his own hands. It's also obvious that the child hasn't eaten or had anything to drink for quite some time. Without saying a word, he places a bowl of hot porridge in front of him. Confused, the boy asks why he would show him such kindness. He wonders if the hunter didn't come to kill him like all the villagers wanted. He quietly explains that people had always hated him because of his unusual eyes, and now they simply wanted him gone. Wang Rai listens in silence, carefully reflecting on the boy's words. He sits beside him and asks him to explain exactly how he managed to defeat the monster. The boy begins recalling that horrifying night filled with screams and bloodshed. His family's blood stained every corner of the house while he hid behind a door, silently watching the monstrous creature devour everything in its path. He fought to remain completely silent so the monster wouldn't notice him. Yet behind his cold eyes, an extraordinary determination had already taken root. Despite the overwhelming danger, the boy stayed calm and came up with a precise plan. Armed with nothing more than a sharpened bamboo spear, he waited for the perfect moment. Then, with one perfectly timed strike, he fatally stabbed the monster from behind. He explains that after surviving the attack, he tracked the monster down and even sold his family's belongings to buy information about its weakness. Finally, he displayed the creature's head to give it the same cruel fate it had brought upon his family. Monel finds the entire story almost impossible to believe, yet he can tell the boy is telling the truth. Even for a trained adult, killing a monster like that with nothing but a bamboo spear would be an incredible feat. The hunter realizes the boy possesses the talent, composure, and determination of a born specter hunter. The child calmly says his revenge is complete, that he has no regrets left, and that now he only wishes to wait for the end of his own life beside his family's graves. At that moment, the hunter flicks the boy's forehead, catching him completely off guard. He asks for the child's name, and the boy replies that it is Iser, a name that means to change the world. The hunter asks if he truly believes that taking revenge on a single specter is enough, or if he simply accepted that this is all he'll ever accomplish. Monrion tells him that although he has lost both his family and his will to live, he shouldn't be satisfied with defeating just one specter. With that, the hunter turns to leave, declaring that the boy is not a specter and that the extermination request has been cancelled. Iser remains completely silent, quietly absorbing the life-changing words the hunter left him with. Back in the village chief reacts with outrage when he hears the hunter's decision. Monreal calmly explains that the young survivor is nothing more than an ordinary human. Even after the villagers offer him more money, the hunter asks what could possibly justify their hatred for a child. The chief angrily shouts that the boy's terrifying eyes are certain to bring disaster upon the entire village. With a sharp gaze, Montgrion replies that the real monsters seem to be the villagers themselves. He warns them that judging the boy simply because he is different and allowing such hatred to fester will only attract more specters. Realizing these stubborn people have no intention of listening, the hunter slowly lifts the brim of his hat, revealing something so frightening that everyone freezes in place. A pair of horns emerges from beneath his hat. He issues a serious warning that if anyone ever tries to torment the boy again, they will answer to him. Introducing himself as a powerful member of the Kaibe, he promises to personally beat anyone who dares to disobey. As the village chief collapses in terror, Montgrion explains that his people have formed an alliance with humans to hunt specters. However, he understands that narrow-minded people like them would see anyone who is different as a monster. Lying on the ground, the chief mutters with resentment that the hunter is nothing more than a freak, just like the boy. Filled with hatred, he wonders what they're supposed to do now that no one will protect them. Consumed by madness, he secretly decides to take matters into his own hands. Gathering several villagers armed with farming tools, he insists they must protect the village themselves. Carrying burning torches, the furious mob launches a horrific attack in the middle of the night. They surround Iser's humble home and set it ablaze, turning the entire place into a raging inferno. Laughing maniacally, the village chief boasts that they should have done this from the very beginning. He shouts that burning down the house will force the boy to leave because monsters have no place among them. Desperate, Iser rushes toward the flames, trying to protect his family's final resting place. His face twisted by hatred, the chief continues screaming for everything to be burned to ashes, but all of the hatred surrounding them awakens a sinister force nearby. The villagers' bodies begin to be consumed by a strange, malevolent purple flame. From that horrifying mass of hatred, a colossal specter is born, driven by an insatiable thirst for blood and destruction. Roaring for everything to burn, the monstrous creature charges forward without mercy, destroying everything in its path. Iser watches in stunned disbelief as the terrifying specter appears right before his eyes. The creature lets out a deafening roar that shakes the ground with its overwhelming power. Without hesitation, it unleashes a devastating magical attack straight at the young survivor. Barely able to react, Iser watches the deadly energy race toward him. The explosion hits with tremendous force, sending him flying across the ground. He crashes through the burning ruins, his entire body racked with pain from the brutal impact. Badly injured, he struggles to catch his breath as every part of him screams in agony. When he looks to the side, panic fills his heart as he sees his family's graves engulfed in flames. Gathering the last of his strength, the young boy tightly grips his digging tool. He rises to his feet, determined to face yet another specter that has come to destroy his life. Fury surges through him as he realizes that after taking his family away, this monster now wants to steal even their final resting place. The monstrous specter laughs hysterically, mocking the child's desperate resistance. Its razor-sharp claws, wrapped in blazing purple flames, slash down with ruthless force. Iser barely manages to dodge the attack as hatred boils through his veins like never before. At that moment, he realizes that even though he has lost almost everything, there are still things precious enough to protect. Just then, the Spectre Hunter's powerful words echo through the boy's mind. He remembers the hunter asking whether he had simply settled for that small, meaningless revenge. An uncontrollable rage overtakes his expression, awakening a dormant power deep within him. Suddenly, a massive and mysterious aura of purple flames erupts violently from his body. The boy channels that dark power as it manifests around his arms and neck. The mocking spirits watching from the shadows stare in amazement as his terrifying transformation unfolds. The specter's voice echoes through Iser's mind, asking how he could possibly be satisfied with killing only a single monster. At the same time, countless monstrous faces emerge from the swirling purple mist, all hungry for even more destruction. The enormous specter twists its face into a horrifying grin, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Then, without warning, a sharp blade pierces one of the creature's eyes, sending blood spraying through the air. The colossal specter staggers backward as a mysterious figure watches the scene from a distance. Badly wounded, Iser finally understands the true meaning of his revenge against these monsters. He realizes that his journey of fury will not end until the very last specter has been erased from the world. Using the last of his strength, he reaches his blood-stained hand toward the sky. But his energy is completely exhausted, and his arm falls limp in the middle of the battlefield. Just before he collapses to the ground, a mysterious hand firmly catches him. A barefoot figure lands heavily on the shattered earth, kicking up dust with an overwhelming presence. The Spectre Hunter springs into action, quickly leaping away with the boy safely in his arms. The giant specter is left confused as it watches its target escape right before its eyes. Holding the young hero, Mung admits he is impressed that the boy never backed down despite facing such overwhelming danger. He praises Iser's courage as the child lies unconscious and completely exhausted in his arms. With a cold, unwavering gaze, the hunter quietly mutters that the people of that village are truly pathetic. He explains that human malice creates the demonic energy that attracts terrifying specters like this one. The hunter declares that the appearance of this monster was entirely the villagers' own fault, born from the hatred they harbored. He then coldly commands the villagers' souls to beg forgiveness from Iser's deceased family. With a single devastating strike, he shatters all of the dark energy surrounding the battlefield. The monstrous specter grits its teeth as it suffers the full force of the hunter's attack. The gigantic creature roars in agony before being consumed by a massive explosion of purple energy. Mill calmly walks forward, remarking that the monster was far too noisy for something so large. In the last moments before losing consciousness, Iser silently repeats his vow to exterminate every specter. The hunter approves of the boy's resolve, promising that brighter days await him if he can survive. He decides to carry the injured child with him, promising to look after him until he becomes strong enough to stand on his own. And so, the two leave together, walking toward the horizon and leaving the burning village behind. As time passes, peace seems to return in a new land surrounded by beautiful nature. A golden butterfly drifts gracefully through the air beside long purple hair swaying gently in the breeze. The butterfly softly lands on Monrion's shoulder, while Iser rests on a makeshift bed. Iser slowly begins to regain consciousness, letting out a faint groan as he struggles to open his eyes. Sitting quietly near the doorway, the specter hunter notices the boy stirring and asks if he has finally awakened. He introduces himself as Mill, a specter hunter, and the boy watches him with careful attention. Mill calmly tells him that he is free to hate him if he wants, since he saved his life simply on a whim. At that moment, Iser remembers his terrifying battle against the enormous swamp monster. He also recalls his family's graves being completely destroyed by the flames that night, along with the image of the specter hunter carrying him away from the inferno that consumed his old life. The boy realizes that everything truly happened and that his family's resting place is gone forever. Looking down at the bandages wrapped around his body, he is shocked to discover that not a single burn scar remains. Iser thanks the hunter for taking care of him. The hunter is surprised that the boy remains so calm even after learning that he is a Dokubi. Iser replies that he doesn't care about his race because the man has treated him with nothing but kindness. The hunter smiles to himself, pleased by the boy's lack of prejudice, and confirms his name. Monrion then asks if Iser has given any thought to his offer of training under him and learning the art of exorcism. The boy finds the offer almost too good to be true and begins to question the hunter's true intentions. Amused by his caution, the hunter chuckles and tells him to be prepared if he decides to accept. He explains that their home is the kingdom of the Dokubi, a harsh land overflowing with demonic energy that is extremely dangerous for humans. With an intimidating look, he warns that the training will be so brutal that every single day will feel like living in hell. Iser quietly repeats the word hell to himself, carefully taking in the magnitude of the challenge ahead. After a brief moment of thought, he says he likes the idea because it is the only way he will become strong enough to hunt specters. A faint smile appears on his face as Iser firmly declares that he will follow Monrion from this day forward. Monrion realizes that although he had hoped to intimidate the boy a little, Iser's determination has not wavered in the slightest. The hunter tells him to finish all of his food because he needs to recover before they leave. Still weak, Iser reaches out with his trembling hand and picks up the bowl of hot soup the hunter left for him. As Monrion walks away, he reminds the boy to make sure he finishes every last bite this time. Iser quietly nods and begins eating the warm meal while resting in the cozy room. The following day, the two set out on a long journey, climbing steep mountains blanketed in thick mist. Monrion warns Iser not to step away from the guide rope because the forest is filled with powerful demonic energy. Eventually, they stop in front of a massive wooden structure that stands alone in the middle of nowhere. The hunter introduces it as the Temple of the Ghost Guardian, the gateway leading directly to the secret kingdom of the Dokebi. An old sign hanging on the enormous gate clearly states that the sacred place is strictly forbidden to all humans. Iser asks if it is really safe for him to enter. The hunter responds by asking if the boy is afraid. Iser explains that he is only worried about causing trouble for his master, a response the hunter finds surprisingly thoughtful. Monrion pushes open the massive wooden gate, assuring him that no one there would dare question the orders of their chief. Hearing his savior casually mention the chief leaves Iser both confused and surprised. As soon as Iser looks through the open gate, he is completely captivated by what he sees. Before him lies a breathtaking city full of life, surrounded by magnificent mountains. Mongwain proudly asks if he likes the place, and Iser admits that it truly feels like an entirely different world. Looking toward the distant figures gathered in the town square, the boy wonders if everyone living there is really a Dokebi. Just then a young woman with purple hair storms over, shouting in surprise after spotting a fragile human inside the temple. More horned residents gather around, silently watching the unusual scene unfold. Mongan raises his voice so everyone can hear and announces that Iser will now train under him in the art of exorcism. He declares that the boy is now part of his family and orders everyone to treat him well from this day forward. The residents quietly listen to their leader's announcement without showing the slightest intention of questioning it. Moments later, smiles spread across their faces as they agree that if the chief brought him here, then they are happy to welcome the newest member. Iser watches in amazement as a single statement from the hunter is enough for everyone to accept him without hesitation. He realizes that his master holds far more authority than he had originally imagined. After the introductions are over, Monrion leads the boy to a table covered with an incredible feast. He asks the cook to bring even more meat for Iser, and the cook happily agrees, staring at the enormous amount of food in disbelief. Iser asks what eating has to do with hunting specters. The master gently places a hand on the boy's head and says, "There is one major problem they need to solve before training begins." He explains that Iser is still just a child, and a child's most important responsibilities are to eat well and get plenty of sleep. He warns that if the boy doesn't strengthen his body now, he will deeply regret it later on during his journey. Understanding the lesson, Iser accepts that building a strong body is essential if he wants to achieve his dream of revenge. Without wasting another moment, he begins devouring the food as his new master watches with satisfaction. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echo through the room as someone calls out for the chief, drawing everyone's attention. An energetic young woman named Ganga rushes in carrying a huge bowl piled high with fresh meat to add to the feast. The master praises her for her work before explaining that he has business to take care of and asks her to look after the boy. She happily agrees. Meanwhile, Iser feels completely stuffed, convinced that this is its own kind of hell. Ganga cheerfully introduces herself while gently patting the boy on the head. When she learns that he is only 10 years old, she is completely shocked because he seems far more mature than she is, even though she is already 22. The cook explains that humans mature much faster than dokebi, making the two of them almost the same mentally despite the age difference. Excited by the explanation, Ganga proudly announces that she is now Iser's big sister and says he should be happy about it. The chief tells her to take good care of her new little brother, and she accepts the responsibility with a bright, joyful smile. Iser quietly watches the entire exchange, still trying to adjust to his new life. He rubs his swollen stomach, which is painfully full after eating so much meat. As they walk through the streets together, Ganga laughs at his condition and assures him that he'll digest everything quickly because he's still young. She then comments that he is incredibly lucky to be training directly under the chief. Curious, Iser asks if his master is really that amazing. The girl reveals, to Iser's shock, that his master is a living legend who has been hunting specters for over 300 years. The boy quietly reflects on that revelation, realizing just how different the Dokebi's lifespan is from that of humans. As he looks at his new companions, he admits to himself that they seem like completely ordinary people. There is a warmth and kindness among them that he had never experienced in the village where he was born. Being genuinely welcomed is still a completely new feeling for him. Suddenly, someone shouts, drawing his attention. A group of young Dokebi approaches, complaining that a mere human was allowed into the temple and accepted by the chief. Their leader, Baptiste, steps forward with an intimidating presence and invites the boy to have a friendly conversation. Recognizing the troublemakers, Ganga immediately becomes worried. Iser studies the horned youth, wondering if they are the type who are always looking for trouble. As the sun begins to set, the atmosphere in the temple square quickly grows tense. Ganga tries to intervene by grabbing one of the boys and demanding to know what they think they're doing. A scuffle breaks out, and Iser is knocked to the ground, coughing up a little blood from the impact. Ganga angrily warns them that the chief will punish them. However, Baptiste casually insists that this is nothing more than a normal training session. Smirking, the bully says he simply wants to show the human his place, so he'll give up on becoming a specter hunter. He admits that he was jealous when the chief chose to train such a weak human instead of him. Iser slowly gets back to his feet and brushes the dust off his clothes. Realizing this is supposed to be training, he quietly apologizes, admitting that at first he thought they were simply trying to bully him. He says he's sorry for interrupting their training and accepts the challenge if that's what it takes to continue living there. The horned youth becomes deeply irritated by the mysterious boy's calm attitude. Consumed by anger, he throws a powerful punch straight into Iser's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. Without giving him a chance to recover, the Dokebi unleashes a relentless barrage of fast, furious blows. As he attacks, he mocks Iser for being nothing more than a weak human and asks what he'll do if he can't handle the pressure. Despite taking one direct hit after another, Iser silently endures the pain without backing down even a single step. Eventually, the attacker grows tired. He realizes that no matter how much he hits the boy, he feels no satisfaction. To his surprise, Iser's dark, unwavering eyes remain completely focused, despite the beating. Frustrated by that unshakable stare, the bully charges in again. But Iser has already noticed that every attack follows the same predictable pattern. Both his opponent and Ganga are stunned when they see the boy's stance suddenly change. In an instant, Iser dashes forward, catching his opponent completely off guard with an incredibly swift counterattack. The young Dokebi's golden eyes widen in shock as the human's fist comes flying straight toward his face. With flawless precision, Iser lands a clean punch squarely on his opponent's face before he can react. The blow crashes into the Dokebi's jaw with enough force to make him grit his teeth in pain. The bully is launched backward and crashes onto the arena floor, lying there in complete disbelief. Iser wipes the blood from his mouth and complains that his body is still far too weak because he hasn't been eating properly. He walks over to his fallen opponent and tells him not to hold back next time just because he looks weak. Then he extends his bruised hand and calmly reminds him that a real specter would never show mercy in battle. He looks his opponent straight in the eyes with his deep black gaze and suggests they train together again another time. Night falls over the mountains surrounding the temple, bringing with it a comforting silence. After everything that happened that day, Manhwa lets out a deep sigh, wearing a concerned expression as he waits for his new disciple to return. When he finally sees the boy, the master jokes that he managed to get himself completely beaten up on his very first day. He says Ganga already told him about the fight and tells the boy to come closer so he can heal his injuries. Channeling a soothing green magic, the master watches as Iser's wounds begin to heal almost instantly. Iser recognizes the healing spell as the hunter advises him that fights are normal, but he should always speak up if they ever go too far. Curious, the hunter asks whether the boy managed to land a hit on his opponent and tells him not to worry about the answer. Iser lies, saying he never touched his opponent because he doesn't want to cause trouble while staying there. Hearing that, Manhwa playfully smacks the boy on the head, leaving Iser completely confused. He complains about Iser calling him chief and jokes that he's already busy enough treating the injuries of one stubborn kid. The master reminds him that he introduced him to everyone as a member of the family and orders him to stop acting like a guest. Iser quickly explains that he didn't intentionally let himself get beaten because of the other boy's position. He honestly admits that his opponent fought with everything he had and that he simply couldn't land a hit. Manhwa nods, saying that the other boy is exceptionally talented and is already capable of fighting on equal footing with adults. Scratching his head thoughtfully, Iser asks whether that talented rival is already strong enough to hunt real specters. With a serious expression, the hunter immediately answers that the other boy would certainly die if he tried. He points out the irony that Iser, despite being physically weaker than the horned youth, still managed to defeat a specter that would have killed him. The master explains that exorcism is not about brute strength alone. He reminds Iser that he defeated the previous monster because he relied on strategy. The hunter says the other boy would die against a powerful specter because he lacks knowledge, while Iser would die because he lacks physical strength. He concludes that only by combining knowledge with combat ability can someone truly become an exorcist. To begin Iser's real training, the hunter assigns him his very first and most difficult task. The following day, Iser begins his training by running non-stop through the courtyards of the sacred temple to build his stamina. He also pushes himself through intense physical exercises to strengthen his body, displaying remarkable dedication for someone his age. On top of that, he spends countless hours inside the enormous library, studying ancient books and absorbing as much knowledge as possible. Watching his exhausting daily routine, Ganga pouts, unable to believe how much he studies without taking a break. She asks if he isn't bored and offers to play with him instead. However, Iser calmly replies that he has to complete the task his master assigned him. He reveals that the hunter ordered him to read every single book in the library. Ganga is stunned, saying that would take decades to finish. She jokes that she'd rather die than read that many books. Iser simply replies that he actually enjoys reading. Noticing that he is constantly covered in bruises, Ganga explains that reading alone isn't enough. Besides studying, he also has to win a duel to prove his skill in combat. Ganga is completely confused and surprised when she learns that the boy has been taking part in real sparring matches. In reality, little Iser has been challenging the horned rival every single day, only to end up knocked flat on the ground each time. His opponent complains that he's tired of fighting him every day and says he can't just kill him. Iser calmly replies that it's only training. Watching from nearby, everyone finally understands why his body is always covered in bruises. Ganga worries, believing it's impossible for an ordinary human to defeat a Dokkaebi through physical strength alone. Iser explains that these training sessions are preparing him for the future, because real specters won't show mercy if he refuses to fight. Annoyed by the child's determination, the horned youth stomps the ground so hard that the stone floor cracks beneath his feet. He warns that he has been holding back, but if Iser keeps bothering him with these duels, he'll break every bone in his body. Ganga immediately steps between them with her arms spread wide, demanding that the bully stop trying to intimidate him. The rival turns to leave, grumbling that Iser is nothing but a coward who hides behind girls, and says he can't understand what Ganga sees in him. Wiping the blood from his face, Iser calmly says he won't blame him even if his bones get broken. Then he challenges him to fight once again. The rival stops walking and falls completely silent as his anger continues to build in the face of the human's relentless persistence. Watching from a distance, the other residents whisper among themselves that the human boy must have completely lost his mind. The group of troublemakers eventually leaves the training grounds, leaving the injured boy behind. But suddenly, Iser shouts his opponent's name across the square, drawing everyone's attention once again. Raising his hand, he challenges the horned youth yet again, beginning a relentless routine of daily battles. His opponent throws powerful kicks, while demanding to know why Iser keeps ignoring his warnings when he has no desire to break the boy's legs. He slams Iser to the ground and insists that he has no talent, saying an ordinary human could never defeat a Dokkaebi. Time continues to pass, and the seasons slowly change, covering the temple grounds with beautiful white blossoms. Yet despite suffering one painful defeat after another, young Iser never once considers giving up his grueling daily routine. During one of their fights, the rival notices that Iser's dark eyes seem to be fixed on a goal far beyond defeating him. That unwavering determination begins to deeply frustrate the young horned warrior. Walking away with his friends, he admits that the human's silent persistence makes him incredibly angry. To vent his frustration, he begins punching sandbags with tremendous force and determination. As he trains, he shouts that he hasn't been standing still while his rival continues to improve. Thinking of his friend's smile and the respect of his master, he vows that he won't let anyone take those things away from him. Burning with determination, he declares that his own talents are different and that the human's fist will never be able to reach him. Once again, the seasons change. Green leaves cover the vast courtyard of the Temple of Spirits before eventually turning red, marking the passage of another long stretch of time. Exactly 1 year later, the two young rivals stand face to face once again in the same stone courtyard beneath the autumn leaves. Ganga and the others watch with wide eyes, unable to believe what they are witnessing. The horned youth touches his own face in complete disbelief, stunned by the unexpected turn of the battle. Meanwhile, little Iser stares at his own fist in surprise. He realizes that, at long last, he has finally landed a clean punch on his rival. The horned warrior remains frozen in place, trembling as he touches his bruised cheek, unable to understand how a human managed to hit him. Iser can hardly believe that all the effort he put into an entire year of training has finally started to pay off. Trying to hide his shock, his opponent awkwardly stumbles back and shouts that Iser only landed the hit because he slipped by accident. His pride wounded, the young Dokkaebi charges forward with his fist raised, swearing that he'll crush the human once and for all. But Iser displays incredible agility, effortlessly dodging the attack while preparing a perfectly timed counter. Ilcho grows increasingly frustrated as Iser continues avoiding every strike, despite all the hard training he himself has done over the past year. He begins to wonder if the human's efforts were worth even more than his own. At that moment, he finally understands what it means to combine strength with knowledge. Nearly every demon possesses overwhelming physical power that ordinary humans simply cannot match. Because humans are unable to overcome that difference through strength alone, there is a clear limit to what they can achieve when hunting monsters. That is why the powerful Dokkaebi throws everything he has into a devastating attack against the young fighter. But the secret that allows ordinary humans to overcome such an impossible gap is something far more valuable. That secret is the vast amount of knowledge gained through countless hours of study. Using his refined agility, Iser slips beneath the attack, barely avoiding the blow as it brushes past him. By accurately identifying every vital point and weakness in his opponent's body, he turns what should have been an impossible battle into a winnable one. However, all the knowledge in the world means nothing if your fists aren't fast enough to reach the target. That is exactly why every warrior must also master another essential skill. Only by achieving complete martial mastery can someone deliver swift, precise attacks with flawless accuracy. A rapid barrage of strikes crashes into his opponent's weak points one after another. Only when knowledge gained from books is combined with real combat skill does true power emerge, making it possible for a fragile human body to defeat terrifying monsters. The young spectators watching the fight are left completely speechless by the outcome of the duel. Ganga can hardly believe that Iser managed to defeat such a powerful opponent after only 1 year of relentless training. His rival lies unconscious on the ground as Iser walks over, genuinely concerned to see if he's all right. Peace returns beneath the clear blue sky, signaling the end of the exhausting battle. Ganga showers Iser with praise for his victory, but he simply teases her by saying she talks far too much. Suddenly, they spot Master Monrian approaching in the distance. accompanied by his imposing army dressed in black robes. The leader gives his warriors their final instructions, and they listen with complete respect and attention. Just then, someone calls out from behind him. Monrion turns around to see who interrupted him. Ezer asks where they are going. The master explains that he'll be leaving the city for a few days. He says they're heading out on another specter hunting expedition to help humans and prove that the Dokubi are not a threat. Hearing that, Iser remembers that one of those very expeditions was what led his master to visit his old village. Monrion asks how Iser's training has been progressing. Gonga excitedly runs over, eager to tell him the good news. Before she can say a word, however, a strong hand suddenly rests on Iser's shoulder, catching everyone's attention. To everyone's surprise, it's the horned rival himself, openly acknowledging his defeat in training. The master is impressed by Iser's rapid growth, while the rival admits that he'll train even harder before their next rematch. Iser finds his opponent's sudden change in attitude extremely suspicious, especially since he even addressed him by his real name. Relieved to see the two getting along, the chief laughs and praises the horned youth for becoming more mature. Embarrassed by the compliment, the rival blushes, while Gonga immediately realizes he has his own motives for trying to earn the chief's approval. With a cheerful wave, the charismatic master says goodbye and asks the young fighters to continue being good friends. The little green-haired warrior happily celebrates seeing them get along, but the horned rival's friendly expression quickly changes. When asked why he's suddenly acting so close to Iser, the green-haired friend admits that he has always liked Iser, but didn't want to hurt his feelings. The rival then invites Iser to go out and spend the day with the boys. As soon as she hears that, the outspoken Gonga insists on coming along as well. The rival immediately refuses, saying today's outing is for boys only, leaving Gonga visibly annoyed at being left out. She playfully punches her companion in the face, laughing as she celebrates being called his sister for the very first time. Later that night, a cool, star-filled sky settles over the mysterious and peaceful village of the Horned Warriors. The soft glow of lanterns gently illuminates the outside of one of the ancient temples nestled within the sacred mountains. The massive iron padlock on the front gate is securely fastened, preventing anyone from entering. Inside the dark armory, however, the young protagonist quietly whispers for his companion, careful not to make too much noise. The rival immediately starts insulting him again and tells him to hurry up and choose a weapon, making Iser realize that their brief truce didn't last very long. The horned youth challenges the human boy to a real and dangerous secret monster hunt to settle once and for all who is stronger. Iser reminds him that their master specifically forbade them from leaving, and points out that it's highly unlikely they'll even find a real monster out there. The green-haired friend explains that the temple patrols heard the sound of a crying baby somewhere nearby, and suspect it might actually be a monster. As soon as he hears that, the horned rival suddenly begins to hesitate and suggests they call off the secret expedition. Drawing on everything he has learned, Iser explains that there are more than 10 different types of monsters capable of imitating a baby's cries, and some of them guarantee certain death. Annoyed by the young bookworm's display of knowledge, the rival angrily grabs his heavy weapon. Ilchui challenges Iser to come along, accusing him of using the chief's orders as an excuse because he's too scared. The confident warrior tells the other two to leave without him, insisting they don't need cowards in their group. Laughing and mocking the protagonist's supposed lack of courage, they head down the stairs and disappear into the darkness. Iser silently watches them leave, maintaining a thoughtful expression despite their insults. Deep within the mysterious forest, the darkness seems to conceal dangerous and sinister secrets beneath the faint moonlight. The young warrior proudly carries his iron club, feeling the blood of a demon hunter coursing through his veins. The group eagerly presses forward, treating the nighttime hunt as a rite of passage on their journey to becoming true specter hunters. Wearing a confident grin, the leader of the small group has complete faith in his fighting abilities. To everyone's surprise, Iser suddenly appears behind them carrying a small axe and an iron shield. The horned rival glances back with a look of contempt, convinced that the human is terrified of the dark forest. He smugly recalls how, when he was younger, he had the courage to touch the corpse of a real demon. While secretly planning to humiliate him, the rival hears Iser calmly explain that he only followed them because he couldn't stop them from doing something so reckless. Remembering what he learned from his books, Iser says that a child-type demon usually makes nothing more than foolish demands, making it a relatively easy target for them. Suddenly, Iser's eyes widen as he senses something strange in the eerie silence surrounding them. The worst possible scenario would be if the mysterious creature they were searching for wasn't just an ordinary child-type demon. A deafening, blood-curdling scream suddenly echoes through the trees, revealing the presence of something monstrous. The horrifying cry spreads throughout the dark forest, filling the air with unbearable fear and tension. A grotesque creature emerges from the shadows. Its twisted body is covered with dozens of crying human heads. The monster bares its razor-sharp teeth and deadly spikes, radiating an overwhelming aura of slaughter and destruction. Unaware of the nightmare lurking nearby, the group cautiously continues deeper into the forest. The horned rival begins to break into a cold sweat as he notices the unnatural silence and wonders why they still haven't found the creature. One of his companions suggests returning to the village, since the supposed child-type monster is nowhere to be found. Frustrated and on edge, the rival points his weapon at Iser, accusing him of looking down on him because of his victory in their previous sparring match. Remaining perfectly calm, Iser explains that he doesn't consider himself superior just because he won a single training fight. He honestly admits that he only won because he caught his opponent off guard during that brief exchange. Surprised by his humility, the rival asks if he truly feels that way. Iser openly praises his rival's incredible physical strength and superior martial skills. With his ego thoroughly boosted, the horned youth regains his usual arrogant attitude and gladly accepts the compliments. He decides to put their rivalry behind them and offers to become sworn brothers, catching Iser completely off guard. Iser smiles sincerely and admits that he has always dreamed of having an older brother. Seeing such an honest and heartfelt reaction, the rival awkwardly looks away, completely embarrassed. Suddenly, a strange sound interrupts their conversation, putting everyone on high alert. The cry of a baby echoes through the trees, confirming that the monster they had been searching for is finally approaching. Eager to prove himself, the rival sprints toward the sound, challenging everyone to see who can capture it first. He proudly promises to put on a real show and demonstrate to his new little brother how a true warrior fights. But as he gets closer, his eyes widen in horror at a sight far beyond anything he expected. Hidden within the darkness is a horribly distorted face, producing that agonizing baby's cry. One of his companions finally catches up and nervously asks if a creature like that is really supposed to look like a baby. Sweating nervously, the rival tries to hide his fear, insisting that the monster still resembles one. The terrifying creature suddenly opens its enormous mouth and lets out a grotesque shriek that freezes the young warriors in place. Then another horrifying eyeless face emerges from the darkness, revealing that the monster is far worse than they had imagined. Panic spreads through the group as they realize the beast possesses multiple twisted, grinning heads. The leader desperately shouts for everyone to run, realizing that this is no ordinary monster. The horde of screaming heads charges forward with deadly force, its razor-sharp spikes ready to tear its victims apart. Reacting instantly, Iser raises his shield and uses his quick reflexes to block the creature's first devastating attack. The monster's lightning-fast strikes slash past the others, who can barely react to its terrifying speed. The young warrior wearing the helmet stands completely frozen in fear as the deadly spikes whistle past him. A violent blow sends Iser flying, and he cries out in pain as he slams into the ground. He silently thanks himself for bringing his shield, then immediately begins worrying about his friends. His eyes widen in horror as he witnesses a terrible scene unfolding right before him in the forest. The young ill lets out a scream of agony as one of the monster's grotesque heads brutally attacks him. Ojang is also struck by the savage assault, crying out in desperation as unbearable pain tears through his body. Go is pierced through the stomach and collapses to the ground, bleeding heavily and too weak to continue fighting. In just a matter of seconds, the young warriors are completely overwhelmed and left helpless at the mercy of the terrifying beast. The horrifying multi-headed demon bursts into eerie laughter as it looks down on its fallen prey. It is revealed that demons are classified into 9 danger levels. The weakest demons have a relatively high survival rate for those who encounter them. Even against a level 9 creature, a novice hunter still has a reasonable chance of surviving. However, everything changes when facing a level 6 monster. Against a demon of that rank, a beginner's chance of survival drops to only 20%. The creature standing before them is a level 6 demon infamous for the many human heads growing from its body. The moment Iser recognizes its true danger level, he realizes just how catastrophic their situation has become. Panic fills him as he remembers that none of them are even officially recognized warriors, and every member of the group is already seriously injured. With such a powerful enemy standing before them, he knows the death of every one of them is almost inevitable. Forcing himself to stay calm, Iser desperately searches for a way to escape. Collapsed on his knees and crying out in pain, the wounded Yush can barely move while the monster remains nearby. The horned rival mutters in despair, realizing that the world of demons is far more terrifying than he ever imagined. Filled with regret, he breaks down, realizing that everyone is now facing death because of his reckless decision. Go coughs up a large amount of blood, making it painfully clear that his condition is worsening with every passing second. The helmeted boy continues bleeding heavily from his stomach and desperately needs medical treatment if he hopes to survive. Completely overwhelmed, the rival stands there in tears, unable to think of any way out of their hopeless situation. Easer asks himself a painful question. Is it even physically possible to escape while carrying a severely wounded companion? A cruel but practical solution comes to mind. Leave the injured friend behind so the rest can survive. Gripping his weapons tightly, Iser looks at his fallen companions as he prepares himself for the worst possible choice. The horned rival stares at him in absolute shock, unable to believe what he has just heard. Iser insists that their friend's wound is fatal, and that he will die before they ever make it back, even if they try to carry him. Another companion angrily rejects the cold logic of the plan. But then Iser notices something strange. For some reason, the monster has suddenly stopped attacking them. He explains that this creature enjoys savoring prey consumed by despair, and is deliberately waiting for them to make their choice. The group finds itself trapped in a horrifying dilemma: either abandon their injured companion and escape, or stay together and die. Knowing the guilt will haunt them forever, Iser says that, even so, they have no other logical choice. With tears in his eyes, the group's leader finally accepts the painful reality that leaving their friend behind is their only chance of survival. The young warrior Gurgle cries out in pain as he clutches his wounded stomach and asks if he's really going to die alone in the middle of the forest. The massive multi-headed creature slowly approaches the helpless boy lying on the dark forest floor. The demon prepares to deliver the final blow and devour the young warrior who has been left behind. Overcome with fear and guilt, the rival turns away and prepares to run for his own life. At the very last second, Iser makes a swift move and throws a mysterious object toward the monster. The terrifying beast shifts its attention away from the wounded boy and stares at the strange object that has landed in the grass. A small gunpowder bomb begins releasing smoke beside the creature. Seconds later, Iser detonates it. A brilliant flash explodes through the forest, blinding the monster and creating an opportunity for everyone to escape. One of the boys grabs the injured warrior and drags him through the thick smoke, desperately trying to pull him away from the beast. The wounded boy groans in agony as he's dragged across the ground. Iser apologizes to his injured friend and solemnly vows that one day he will return to destroy that demon. The intense burst of light illuminates the dark forest, while the thick smoke forms the perfect cover for their escape. The smoke quickly spreads through the trees, completely hiding the desperate retreat of the young warriors. They sprint through the forest, crushing dry leaves beneath their feet as they try to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the multi-headed monster. Panting and drenched in cold sweat, the rival runs without looking back, struggling to process the tragedy of that night. Left behind in the darkness, the young warrior cries in pain and despair as he stares at his blood-covered hands, completely alone. He wonders through tears if everyone has abandoned him. Meanwhile, the rest of the group continues fleeing through the forest without stopping. The rival breaks down in tears, tormented by the guilt of leaving his injured friend behind at the mercy of the deadly demon. Alone in the darkness, the wounded boy accepts his fate, realizing it was the only way to save everyone else. He sobs uncontrollably, silently begging his friends to forget about revenge and simply stay alive. The gigantic, hellish creature opens its enormous jaws, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Then it launches a swift, merciless attack. The monstrous beast lunges at the helpless boy, leaving him no chance to escape. Hidden behind a tree, Iser watches the horrifying scene as his companion's blood sprays through the air. The young warrior's lifeless remains are brutally dragged across the blood-stained forest floor. The sickening sound of bones being crushed echoes through the darkness as the monster feeds on its defenseless prey. The demon's glowing red eyes shine through the grotesque mass of flesh covering its monstrous body. Then a chilling whisper comes from the creature. It carries the final words of sorrow and despair spoken by the friend they left behind. The boy's face suddenly appears fused into the demon's body, screaming in hatred and resentment after being abandoned to die. Frozen in absolute terror, Iser can do nothing but stare as he hears his friend's ghostly voice calling out to him from the shadows. The beast's many heads whisper a terrifying promise that the survivors of this hunt will soon join them. Back in the village, the adult warriors rush out with torches, hurrying to search for the missing boys. The young purple-haired girl wakes in alarm at the commotion and asks the older woman what is happening. The woman anxiously explains that the 4 boys mysteriously disappeared from their quarters during the night. She adds that the village guards have already headed into the forest to search for them. Remembering their earlier conversation, the girl realizes with horror that they actually had the nerve to sneak out and hunt monsters on their own. She is stunned as the full gravity of the situation sinks in, realizing just how much danger her friends are facing in the darkness. Silently clasping her hands together, she prays with all her heart, that every one of them returns alive. Meanwhile, Iser races down the dark forest trail at full speed, gripping his shield with renewed determination. As he calmly reviews everything that has happened, the young warrior begins reflecting on the weight of his decisions. He remembers the painful choice to abandon his wounded companion in order to save himself and the other two boys. He tells himself it was the only logical decision, knowing that if they had all stayed to fight, every one of them would have died. At least now, they still have a chance to avenge him. The cruel situation brings back painful memories of his past, when he was forced to watch another tragedy unfold without being able to do anything. He knows that charging in recklessly would have accomplished nothing. The better strategy is to track the beast without being discovered and strike when the opportunity presents itself. Iser convinces himself that retreating and planning his revenge, just as he did after losing his own family, was the best choice he could have made. Even so, the image of his fallen friend's smile flashes through his mind, reminding him that the guilt of that decision will never disappear. The unbearable regret continues to torment his soul, filling him with self-loathing. He swears eternal hatred toward every creature of darkness, believing that all of this suffering exists only because they do. Suddenly, an imposing figure steps into his path, forcing Iser to stop and immediately raise his guard. The experienced warrior Gwen appears, furious after catching the young human disobeying orders. He begins scolding Iser, warning that everyone will face severe punishment once the clan's master returns. The guard demands to know where the other boys are. Lowering his head in panic, Iser answers with a trembling voice that they were attacked by a terrifying beast, and that one of his friends was devoured. The warrior freezes in absolute shock after hearing the devastating news. His fist clenches so tightly that his fingers tremble with rage and frustration for failing to protect the clan's children. Consumed by anger, the patrol warrior demands to know the monster's exact appearance and location so he can hunt it down immediately. He orders Iser to return safely to the village while he prepares for battle. Iser warns him that the creature is a level 6 demon. The warrior confidently replies that he is one of the strongest fighters when it comes to raw physical strength. Iser remains silent, knowing that the patrol warrior's overconfidence could cost him dearly. Ignoring the order to stay behind, Iser decides to follow him. The patrol warrior tries to stop him, insisting that the battle is far too dangerous. Iser argues that he knows the exact location of the monster and that they must rescue the other two surviving boys before it's too late. With no other choice, the warrior accepts Iser's help, but gives him one strict order. If the monster appears, he must run without hesitation. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the wounded boy bites down on a tree branch, struggling to endure the unbearable pain as he treats his injuries. He cries out in agony while brutally pulling one of the monster's poisonous spikes from his arm. The blood-stained spike falls to the ground, revealing just how deep the wounds from the battle really are. After making sure the monster isn't following them, the horned rival asks whether his black-haired companion can still hold on. His friend breaks down in tears, wondering if it was really right for them to survive while leaving the other boy behind. Overwhelmed by guilt, the rival lashes out at Iser, blaming him for convincing them to retreat and abandon their friend. The other boy angrily shouts that they should have died fighting together, and that running away was a disgrace they would carry forever. The rival swallows hard, frozen in horror as the weight of his own cowardice finally sinks in. Despair hangs over the forest as the mysterious crying sound begins echoing through the trees once again. Ilchui's eyes widen in terror when he hears the disturbing cry coming from somewhere nearby. A bizarre creature suddenly appears before him. It looks like a horribly deformed baby floating in midair. The young warrior freezes as he realizes he's face to face with a terrifying Don Shigoi. The monster opens its mouth and unleashes a deafening scream that shakes the entire clearing. In the next instant, it launches a savage attack with terrifying speed. Consumed by rage, Ilchoi swears that not a single cursed demon will leave this forest alive. He blames the Hunan's interference for clouding his judgment during the earlier battle. With tears of anger streaming down his face, he vows to avenge his fallen companion with his iron club. He shouts at the top of his lungs that he'll wipe every last demon from existence. But behind him, the enormous silhouette of the true multi-headed beast silently emerges from the darkness. A brutal strike crashes down. Blood sprays across the dark forest. Ilcho is left in complete shock as the devastating blow tears through him. Collapsed on the ground and gravely wounded, he weakly whispers Fojang's name as his strength begins to fade. The gigantic monster stands triumphantly over the helpless warrior's bloody body. A sadistic grin spreads across the creature's face as it realizes it has complete control of the situation. Even while lying on the ground, Ilchu clenches his fist with unwavering determination. He forces himself back to his feet, swearing to crush the demon for harming his precious friends. His face covered in blood, he roars that he will fight until his very last breath to honor his fallen brothers. He charges forward, only to be brutally swallowed by the monster's enormous jaws. As death closes in, he realizes that his quest for revenge is about to end. Suddenly, Patrol Warrior Goyon descends from above and unleashes a devastating strike against the monster. The powerful warrior roars in fury after seeing a demon attacking one of the clan's children. Ilchu looks up in stunned relief as rescue arrives at the last possible moment. The beast howls in pain after taking such a crushing blow. Goyon orders Izer to get the wounded boy to safety while he deals with the monster himself. Izer rushes to help his injured companion, who can hardly believe the powerful patrol warrior has arrived. The wounded monster growls with hatred, baring its razor-sharp fangs at its new opponent. Goyon leaps forward again, delivering another massive slash. The demon's many heads scream in agony as they're relentlessly cut apart. The warrior continues his assault, vowing to make the monster suffer for threatening the future of their people. Watching the battle, Izer is amazed by the patrol warrior's overwhelming strength. Even so, he can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. Ilchu begins crying, blaming himself for the tragic deaths of his two teammates. He tells Izer to escape alone because he has to stay and help Goyon fight. Izer knows Goyon possesses incredible power, but he also understands that hunting demons requires far more than brute strength. If the patrol warrior isn't prepared for the beast's hidden tricks, he'll be in grave danger. Goyon raises his weapon for the finishing blow, shouting that everything ends here. At that very moment, the demon activates its terrifying ability. Illusions of the children appear, crying and begging for help. The warrior freezes in absolute shock as he sees the faces of his beloved nephews. For a brief moment, he hesitates, whispering their names. Seizing the opportunity, the monster brutally drives one of its claws through his body. Racked with pain, Goyon realizes the creature is using the boy's images against him. He tries to fight back, but his resolve wavers once more as the illusion deepens. The fake children plead with him to keep an old promise. Their desperate cries completely shatter the warrior's determination. They beg him to save them from the demon, trapping Goyon in a heartbreaking emotional conflict. Even though he knows those visions are fake, his heart refuses to strike them down. The flood of emotions clouds his judgment and robs him of his focus. The monstrous beast understands this human weakness perfectly. Using such cruel tricks, it destroys its prey's will to fight before delivering the killing blow. Goyon trembles as the narrator reveals that not a single victim has ever been immune to this horrifying illusion. Taking advantage of his hesitation, the demon launches another brutal attack, sending blood spraying through the air. But the monster never expected that among all of its victims, there was one anomaly unlike any other. Izer steadies himself, forcing his mind to remain calm as he reminds himself of one simple truth. This is nothing more than a demon. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.